Imagine your own blood boiling while your skin rots alive. You're at 4,800 meters above sea level. The thin air burns your lungs. Every breath is a losing battle against suffocation. You were brought to tame the most unforgiving mountain range on the planet. Peru, in the year 1870, is a frozen hell. Steel must tear through the raw stone of the Andes, but the mountain doesn't bleed. You bleed. You feel the cold cut through your spine. The abyss calls your name at every step on the suspended tracks. There is no glory in this engineering triumph. There is only the funereal silence of the canyon. The doctors promise that the greatest enemy is gravity. They lie. You trust the thick hemp ropes. You trust the wrought iron pickaxes. You ignore the small sting on your neck, an almost imperceptible pain at dusk. The Lutzomia mosquito has just sealed your fate. You don't know it yet. You keep striking the relentless rock with numb arms. Sweat freezes on your soot-stained forehead. Echoes of dynamite explosions deafen your ears. Smoke hides the bodies falling into deep darkness. But the real fall is happening now inside your veins. Your immune system is about to go into absolute collapse. The silent fever is already hiding in your bloodstream. Your robust body is now a biological time bomb. You look at your hands, calloused by the heavy sledgehammer. They will soon be covered in purulent and moist tumors. The barbed wire of the disease tightens around your throat. The night in the Andes hides horrors that science still doesn't understand. You close your eyes in search of an impossible rest. The cold penetrates your bones, ground by effort. You think the nightmare is the exhaustive work on the Trans-Andean Railway. But what awaits in the shadows of this cursed camp will make you beg for the immediate mercy of a free fall into the rocky canyon. You have been dragged into the heart of a stone labyrinth. The Verrugas Canyon is an open wound in the earth. The rocky walls crush your spirit. Engineer Henry Meig's ambition knows no natural limits. He wants to unite the ocean with the top of the world. You are the disposable instrument of this human arrogance. Clouds crawl beneath your worn boots. The wind howls like a hungry animal. Your mission is to drive wooden sleepers into the edge of nothingness. Every inch of rail costs liters of sweat and blood. You look up and see only the oppressive gray of the sky. You look down and vertigo turns your stomach. The terrain is a puzzle of abysses and loose rocks. Landslides are the only constant melody in this place. You sleep in tents torn by the biting wind. The Andean cold turns your fingers into pieces of ice. The railroad must advance at any human cost. Investors demand the miracle of steel over the mountain range. You have no name for these men in suits. You're just a tool that breathes and consumes meager rations. The hostile geography tries to expel the intruders with daily violence. The thin air deprives your brain of vital oxygen. Your vision darkens after every stroke of your pickaxe. You stagger on the edge of a 300-meter cliff. The black rock seems to absorb the little sunlight. You are building a bridge over the valley of death. The rivers below look like silver, harmless ribbons. But the real threat doesn't come from the force of the water. Geography has hidden a biological killer perfectly adapted to this gorge. You take a deep breath, trying to fill your empty lungs. The air that should keep you alive carries the vector of ruin. You believe you have survived the worst the mountain can offer. But the earth beneath your feet is about to reveal a secret that will turn your own flesh into a prison of indescribable agony. You wake up to the shrill sound of bronze whistles. The packed dirt floor chills your aching back. Your routine is a funeral march toward the explosives. You share your tent with Chen, a 22-year-old youth. He crossed the ocean from Macau in search of silver. Now he coughs blood into a dirty linen rag. You watch Chen's face lose its natural color. He was the strongest in your excavation group. Today, he can barely lift his own rice bowl. Life in the camp is a gear of exhaustion and filth. You chew on dried meat that tastes of dust and salt. The rationed water smells of sulfur and animal despair. You help Chen walk to the edge of the gorge. He trembles uncontrollably under the pale midday sun. His almond-shaped eyes carry a terror you don't understand. You see small, reddish spots appear on the young man's neck. They are not bruises caused by the quarry's sharp stones. You touch his shoulder and feel a scalding fever. Chen's skin seems to burn beneath your fingertips. He murmurs words in a language you do not know. Suffering breaks any language barrier between you two. You wipe the cold sweat from your companion's face. The foremen shout orders in Spanish, shattering the silence of the valley. They demand that sick arms return to lifting sledgehammers. You hide Chen behind a pile of wooden sleepers. You don't want the guards to throw him into the common grave. Your friend cries in silence as the disease progresses. You notice that the red spots are growing rapidly. They begin to rise like bubbles of clotted blood. The smell of diseased flesh fouls the thin air around. You try to offer water, but he can no longer swallow. The sight of Chen wasting away in a few hours destroys your sanity. You look at your own arm and notice an identical mark pulsing under your dirty skin. You are sucked into the meat-grinding machine. The power structure in Verrugas Canyon is absolute and cruel. The chief engineers wear thick coats of imported wool. They watch your suffering through polished brass binoculars. You are disposable in the eyes of the big railway company. The camp doctors pace back and forth. They have leather cases full of quinine and useless opium. You notice the panic hidden behind their round glasses. 19th century medical science is blind in this abyss. They call the horror Andes fever or high-altitude malaria. They do not know of the existence of the deadly microscopic bacteria. You watch the Chilean guards grip their rifle stocks. The fear of a mutiny hangs heavy in the freezing air. Chinese and Andean workers begin to fall in droves. Racial tensions vanish before the invisible biological massacre. Death does not choose language or skin color. You are forced to dig graves instead of tunnels. The foremen try to maintain order using whips and threats. But how can you threaten men who are already rotting alive? You see the chief doctor shake his head in despair. He doesn't understand why strong men turn into skeletons so fast. The camp organization collapses under the weight of unburied corpses. Isolation tents become corridors of muffled screams. You flee from the stern gazes of supervisors masked with cloth. They burn sulfur in a futile attempt to purify the wind. You cough violently as the toxic smoke invades your throat. Your life force is being drained by a relentless parasite. You try to hold your pickaxe, but your fingers fail. The iron falls to the ground with a dull, heavy thud. The collapse of discipline in the camp mirrors the collapse of your body. You lean against the cold, rough stone wall. The power of rich men is useless against nature's fury. The real carnage didn't start with dynamite, but it will end in a bloodbath that will sprout from your very own pores. Your body becomes a lost battlefield. Acute hemolytic anemia brutally devours your red blood cells. You try to breathe, but oxygen no longer travels through your blood. Internal asphyxiation is a slow and silent torture. You collapse onto the rocky ground, feeling the weight of your own skeleton. Brutal hypoxia destroys any chance of healing in your flesh. Your heart beats frantically trying to pump dust. The physical nightmare reaches its peak of horror. Warts sprout from your skin like purulent vascular tumors. Your face, your arms, and your chest are covered. They are living, throbbing wounds of a dark purple color. You try to brush your arm against the fabric of your shirt. The slightest touch makes the tumors bleed profusely without stopping. You are drained from the inside out. The metallic smell of your own blood fills your nostrils. The camp is now an open-air morgue of dantesque proportions. You hear the moans of hundreds of men in the same agony. The Bartonella bacilliformis bacteria multiplies furiously within your exhausted veins. You crawl through the damp earth, trying to reach a puddle of water. Your reflection in the dirty water shows a disfigured monster. You have lost half your weight in just 48 hours. The flesh sinks around your bloodshot eyes. Excruciating pain radiates from every joint in your broken body. Doctors pass you by and simply look away in horror. There are not enough bandages to stop the widespread hemorrhaging. You feel the tumors pop under the pressure of your own weight. Your mind wavers dangerously between febrile delirium and terrifying clarity. The Andean abyss now seems like a cradle of peace and silence. You no longer have the strength to cry out for your mother. Your humanity was stolen by an invisible bite in the dark. You wait for the moment when your heart will finally give out. But the echo of the trains of the future already sounds in the distance, promising that your death will be only the forgotten foundation of a triumph you will never see. Your breath finally ceases under the relentless sky of Peru. Your disfigured body is thrown unceremoniously into a shallow, nameless trench. Oroya fever consumed more than 10,000 lives exactly like yours. The imposing Trans-Andean Railway advances over a hidden carpet of crushed human bones. You are the blood sacrifice demanded by the unstoppable progress of industrial steel. Decades later, medicine will finally give a scientific name to your relentless killer. Student Daniel Alcides Carrión will inoculate himself with contaminated blood to study it. He will die tragically, proving that fever and warts are the same demon. Medical science evolves over the corpses of forgotten workers at the bottom of the damp canyon. But this posthumous glory will never return living flesh to your fractured bones. Luxury trains now cross the mountain ranges at almost 5,000 meters in altitude. Wealthy passengers smile in wonder at the spectacular view from the large glass windows. They drink imported champagne while rolling smoothly over the exact location of your grave. No one hears the screams of agony muffled by the dry, cold earth of the Andes. Official history exalts only the genius of the engineer and the monumental triumph of the work. Your indescribable pain was erased forever from the railway company's record books. The Verrugas Canyon keeps its terrible secret with the absolute coldness of ancient stones. The eternal mist hides the deep scars carved into the mountain and the bodies of men. The biting wind that howls through the rusted cracks of the tracks still carries your hoarse voice. You have become an eternal ghost, trapped in the greatest wonder of modern engineering in America. Your incalculable suffering cemented every rotten sleeper on this blood-stained railroad. The transmitting mosquito continues to dance silently in the frigid shadows of the Andean twilight. He waits patiently for the next vulnerable victim of blind and excessive human ambition. Subscribe to this channel if you have the courage to unearth the hidden truths of the past. Allow the forgotten dead to guide your steps through the darkest roots of our history.